Hi, I'm Chas with Chas's Crazy Creations, and today I'm going to take some side tables that fit on a couch that I found for $1.50 and upcycle them for my home. Let's get started. I found these little tables at a thrift store for $1.50. There were two of them, so I grabbed both, and you pull these clamps up and they hook onto an end of your couch. And we were in need of something just like this at our home. I started by sanding both pieces to rough them up so I could get them ready for painting. After that, I cleaned each piece with a mixture of denatured alcohol and water. For the first table, I used Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color Glacier. I painted on 2 coats as the background was dark, and I let it dry between each coat before moving on. For now, I decided to paint the sides and the edges, but I did not paint the bottom or the legs. For the next part, I used Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color Seaside and Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color Lilac. I placed the 2 colors in a muffin tin and added a little water to make them a little bit runnier for what I was about to do. I am a big fan of paint or stains being smeared across the tops of wood or tabletops, and I wanted to try this on my own. I started by putting the glaze onto the table that I had made with the water and the chalk paint, and then I tried a paintbrush and started smearing it back and forth to try to create the look I was going for. Then I began using my fingers, I had gloves on to protect them, to smear back and forth the paints, and then I just added some more as I went, using all the colors that I had put on to the tabletop thus far. Once I got the look I was going for, I let it dry completely. I placed my plaid stencil onto the table and held it in place with plaid stencil tape, and then I used Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color white to paint the stencil on. I used my plaid stencil brush and I tapped it into the paint and then used a paper plate to get the excess off. Then I pounced my paintbrush up and down onto the stencil. Once I was done, I carefully removed the stencil and I let the stencil dry completely. For my second table, I used Waverly chalk paint in the color white. I painted the entire table white and then let it dry, and I painted it with a second coat and let that dry completely. Once it was dry, I was ready for the next step. I used Waverly chalk paint in the color Crimson and Waverly chalk paint in the color Ocean. I put both of these colors in a muffin pan and added a little extra water to smooth them out. This time I painted on some rough stripes of paint in each of the colors. Once I got all the paint painted on, I started using my hand and smeared it back and forth to get all the colors to interact with each other and mix together. I continued to work it back and forth, and I dipped my fingers into the watered down paint, adding more and working until I got the look I wanted. Once I was done, I let that dry completely. I then added my Home Sweet Home stencil and used stencil tape to hold it in place. I used my Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color white and pounced the paint onto the stencil. Using my plaid stencil brush, I dipped it in the paint, got the excess off on a paper plate, and then pounced it up and down onto the stencil, putting the paint through the stencil and onto the table without it bleeding through. Once it was finished, I carefully lifted my stencil off of the table. I let that dry completely before moving on. Once both tables were dry, I touched up the edges with the original colored paint. I also gave each table 2 coats of folk art home decor varnish, letting it dry between each coat to protect the tables. They are just what we needed, and I'm so excited to use them. And here you can see both the trays on the couches right where we needed them. I'm really excited to put them to great use. I hope this inspires you to find something at a thrift store and flip it so that it fits into your home. I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel and my blog. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.